Good morning and good afternoon to all of you. Welcome to our third webinar of the Verimpact Academy Alumni Club. My name is Marina Deliani. I'm Head of Trainings and Community Engagement at Verimpact, a leading ESG and sustainability services provider. Our services at Verimpact include ESG trainings, ESG reporting, sustainability assessment, and strategy, among others. The Verimpact Academy Alumni Club aims to provide a platform for networking, professional development with guest lectures and webinars, and social interaction online and in person. And we believe that this new initiative will further strengthen the bonds among our alumni spanning different continents and countries. In case you have missed the previous two webinars, you can now access them on our YouTube channel. You could also follow us on social media like LinkedIn or Instagram, and you can register for our newsletter. I will add the links on the chat for you. And for any more information, you could contact us at info@veryimpact.com. As Christina mentioned, I understand we have participants and, of course, members of our alumni club from various places. So we would like to thank our alumni from the Growth Fund, Omran, Omnivest, Oman Sale, Oman Arab Bank, that Christina has mentioned are already participating today. Today's webinar is focused on sustainability in tourism, the challenges and the opportunities that arise from this economic sector. And we're very proud and excited to have as our key speaker today, Mr. Alexandros Angelopoulos, who is the Managing Director of Aldemar Resorts, a leading resorts chain company in Greece. He has been very active in the family business since 1995. He has been working hard towards ideas and policies that open up new horizons in the Greek hotel business and place tourism at the core of the Greek economic activity. And since 2020, he has taken the role of guest lecturer at the University of Piraeus, teaching sustainability in tourism at the postgraduate course on Biochemistry, Circular Economy and Sustainable Development at the University of Piraeus. Also today with us, we have Ms. Christina Deliani, Verimpact's Managing Director, and Mr. Spiro Kouvelis, Verimpact's Senior Advisor, who will be leading this discussion. Christina, Spiro?
Just a warm welcome from me as well. Thank you to our alumni who have participated in trainings and in previous webinars. Thank you to our stakeholders who have been following us, especially our newsletter for the past 4 years. And Spiro, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and hello to everyone. Before I start speaking about Alexandros and how we came to know each other and have exchanged for a long time issues related to sustainability, I just want to echo Marina and congratulate both Marina and Christina for the work that you are doing for putting together those masterclass, if you like, discussions that we do under Verimpact. Should say that I can see in our attendees that we have people attending from places as far as Oman. I can see a few names of people that have been in our trainings, and I'm very happy to see that today, but also from Greece, from other places in Europe and elsewhere. Okay, let me come to say a couple of things about Alexandros Angelopoulos. Alexandros is I'm honored to consider him a personal friend. And we first met back in 2007 when I was just elected in Parliament. I was in charge of sustainability and environment for the opposition at that time. And the way that we met with Alexandros is that he gave me a present I never expected. So one day I got a call in my office, and they said, Mr. Angelopoulos would like to organize a meeting with you and all the representatives of the new generation of tourism professionals to discuss about sustainability in tourism in Greece. And that day I thought, there is hope. Now, Alexandros, since the time I know him, has been doing that. He's been very, very insistent on trying to make good things happen and good things change in Greece. And of course, he has done that not only through his own family business, which is one of the leading groups of resorts and hotels in Greece, but also by being a board member in national and regional tourism institutions, by lecturing at the University of Piraeus on sustainability and tourism, and by being very active. I think that the way to encompass everything was termed in a term not by me, but by a former minister of tourism in Greece, who said that Alexandros is l'enfant terrible of tourism in Greece, because he is continuously, incessantly relentless about trying to make the changes that need to be made. So with this, I just want to stop speaking. I want to thank you all for being with us and let you not only learn from Alexandros' experience, but also enjoy his way of saying things the way he does. Alexandre, the floor is yours.
Christina, Spiros, Marina, thank you so much for the invitation. It's a privilege to be here. I am, in fact, an enfant terrible because the things that need to be addressed and hardly ever addressed were actually, in a sense, victimized under the scope of making short-term profit but losing the long-term goal, which is the reason why we've been doing all this, let's say, effort to convince that some of the things that we do today would have a very big cost in the way that we live in the future. And being in tourism, this is a very interesting challenge because obviously, if you were to address the issue of tourism and hospitality from the scope of sustainability, you would see there are some very interesting, let's say, obstacles to overcome. I would say some of them are very difficult to overcome. And having said that, I have a small presentation that shows a little bit of how we are being faced with a few challenges here in Greece that it would be unfair to say that we should stop whatever we are doing. But on the other hand, we need to be addressing some of those issues in a way that is more towards a solution, towards resolving issues, rather than just sticking our heads into the sand like I don't know what that bird is called anymore. So having said that, if we're here, I can just share my screen and show a little bit of how we see things here in Greece and how they should be addressed according to me, probably. If it's okay with you, I will share my screen. Hopefully everybody can see that. So the first distinction is tourism and hospitality are two very interrelated things, but they're not the same. Tourism is what people visiting a country are doing. They're called tourists after all. And hospitality is what the country that receives the tourists is doing because they're offering this level of hospitality and they're welcoming the guests. Now, the two are obviously interrelated, but in fact, you have to address them in separate points so that you can really look into the sustainable parts of each of the two. Not of them, but it's two different and distinctive things. So one model, the model of hospitality, the model of tourism is a very comprehensive model. It affects the entire chain. The people that work, the academia, the governments, the military organizations, everybody somehow linked to that model of let's say, the economy. The Greek economic model is very highly dependent on this. In fact, currently, I would say that more than 40% of our national income is one way or the other dependent on this model. So going through the case of Greece, the news. Everybody's talking about us. Okay, I know we like to talk about ourselves. It's a very nice subject to talk about, but the world is talking about us. Rhodes, for example, was the most Google travel destination for 2023. 2023 was a record year for Greece, and on top of everything was Rhodes. Obviously, you have the very known destinations like Mykonos and Santorini and Athens, and lately Corfu, Crete. These are destinations that people are talking about. This year, we also talk about Olympia, Pontos area, just because it's the Olympic year. We should be talking more about it, but definitely not. in the last years, and well, as far as I know. We are in the top 10 global destinations. We know we are in the, I think, sixth or fifth or sixth position right now, which is really interesting because it also takes into account some geopolitical, let's say, instability that you find around the globe, and that usually serves the countries that are away from the conflict. It will be for example, Spain, or the always Swiss seeming Malta, Croatia, which are a little bit off the grid, and they never somehow mingled into whatever is happening around the world. This was a record year for Greece. These are the numbers pretty much. In a country of 10 million inhabitants, we had 32.7 million tourists according to the national statistics. Overall, you would see that the contribution to GDP, the indirect contribution to GDP, is officially stated as 30% of the entire GDP of the country. But obviously, this does not include all the extra money spent on infrastructure and let's say professions that are somehow related to tourism but are not calculated as a tourism income. And the indirect contribution to economy is 43%. So this is a country for tourists and a country for hospitality. The numbers, you shouldn't get into that much more. Okay, now this is an interesting slide because the revenue, the hotel revenue in million, went up from around 8.6 million to 10.5, which says that we had a 22.5% increase on revenue from last year from 2022 to 2023. The investment went up by 7%. Not a huge budget, but still it's a 700 million investment spent on the tourism sector. But, and here starts the not so good news. Only 13.3% of that money went to sustainable related investments. Sustainability related investments should have gone up. I mean, this is the theme of the times. And just having spent less than 15% of our money on sustainability related issues when we are not up there yet is a bit of troubling information. It's something to be looked into carefully by those that should be looking into that. So what should we do for the future? How should we address all the good news? And how should we consider this good news in their totality and not just in numbers and financial related numbers? So this is a very simple term. Most of you would probably know this term. Tourism carrying capacity is, in a very brief way of putting it, how many people can we expect to have without causing rituals that actual benefits? So the official WTO wording is that the maximum number of people that may visit a tourist destination at the same time without causing destruction to the physical, economical, social, cultural, environmental, in an acceptable decrease in the quality of visitor satisfaction. So you don't want either the people staying in the destination, living in the destination, and those visiting the destination seeing the amount of people visiting as a problem, having them cause actual problems. Since probably the end of the last decade, we have heard a lot about over tourism. We have seen Barcelona, big cities, Paris, starting to adjust flow of people coming into their cities, trying to make sure that we don't see images like the ones you see on the top left or the right bottom. Okay, the road not good, but either way, you still need the breathing space. So, we can put too many in words or in measures that can be very meaningful to the people that will have to put down with policies to control the flow. We had that problem with Santorini. There are people that believe that Santorini does not suffer from over-tourism, when in fact it actually suffers from extreme over-tourism. The natural resources, the resources and then the rest of the nature of Santorini, starting with water and food, cannot accommodate for the people visiting the island. So there is a limit. We should be able to move down that limit and come down with an answer to that problem. Now, over the years, WTO is, let's say, in a certain would say that the tourism will very increasing. So people want more. They want to see more. They want to visit more places. The fact is that if you look back at the coronavirus season, I'd say it's a season because I don't even think that it lasted 2 years. Everything was better. The actual temperature of Earth dropped a few points. Well, not degrees, but at least decimal points of a degree. The natural resources circulated nicely. The people were actually living a little bit better. So should we consider tourism as a kind of a problem or something, or should we fit the way we look at tourism so that it doesn't become a problem in the future? Look back probably in the beginning of the century and a term called plant obsolescence. Plant obsolescence was not used in tourism until recently, where a professor from the University of Piraeus in Holland actually linked plant obsolescence with services. It was not done until that time. The very simple understanding of this that we do not consume the destinations, we experience the destination. This is the way we should be looking at tourism in the future. To go back a little bit in the 90s, in the early hundreds, the first light bulb was introduced at the time. How many people know this? But the actual life expectancy of this light bulb was unlimited. It still burns in a museum today. It's still actually lit. So obviously, the big manufacturers came together and said, "This is not a way to move forward. If the light bulbs don't die, we will." So they came up with life expectancy for the light bulb. Then it was for the photocopier machine, and then it was for the mobile phones, and then it was for the TV screens. Eventually, it was a time thing. We do not like things to live forever because it doesn't make financial sense for them to live forever. But at the same time, the resources of the planet are being depleted. And now we're talking about circular economy, and now we're talking about how to give things a second life or a third life. But the actual problem starts right here. We decided that things should not be living forever, should be dying, because the stock exchange or whatever financial institution you believe in needs to be alive at every single moment. Now, that is a very big question, and probably one I should not be raising. No, I'm definitely not the right person to answer. I'm going to leave you with that, not going back to the history so much. But whenever I teach my students, I will say the same thing. The goal is not to renew the product over and over and over, to renew the trust in the product. And this is what makes a difference in tourism. This is what will change the world in tourism. I have a theory about how different nations conceive the notion of a good qualitative luxury touristic product. If you go to Spain, the renovations take place probably around a decade. In Greece, it takes about 3 to 4 years to renovate a product just because we hate that our neighbor has a more fresh product than ourselves. That is not a very good reason to renovate. That definitely is not in my book. So we need to find a way to renew the trust in the product by offering superior services, making sure that whatever the land has offered, the nature has offered, we present it as a gift. You know, whenever I hear somebody saying, okay, there are insects in my garden outside, there is well, in some cases we had snakes as well. Well, snakes eat the mice. You know, there is a way that the world is working. We probably don't understand it. We have not been trained to accept it, but we must be able to understand it because this is the only way we can move forward. You know, the scenario with the bees. I'm telling you, I have seen at least 10, 20 tourists kill bees just because they are annoyed by them. At the same time, they do not understand how this is impacting their own lives, not in the short run, but in the long. So, going back to the beginning, sustainable travel for the destination and practice sustainable travel for the tourists. It's two sides of the same coin. We want the companies and organizations to make sure that we offer responsible traveling. We make a very comprehensive hospitality scenario for everybody. And we want the tourists to be held accountable for the way they behave on the destination or traveling to a destination. This is something that most people do not understand. If we violate the natural environment, then there's no reason for people to come and visit. Something is off there. Doesn't make any sense. If you go to the waterfalls of Nenuta, Nenuta is a place very close to the Fornoi forest in ancient Olympia. Now, that's a unique place to visit. How can we promote this uniqueness if it's not there anymore? This is a very large list of things that we should be looking into. We need to balance the economic and social development. We need to respect the social, cultural authenticity of the destination, which means also the people and the natural environment. The people, you know, somebody actually came to a destination of ours and he was very fluent in French and he said, the villageois, which means the people of the village. He said it in contempt. And then 2-3 years probably later, he's eating at the house of one of the people working in a hotel. The food is cooked by his mother, and he always comes to the same place. He lives the hotel, but at the same time leaves 2 or 3 times over the week just to go eat on the family house of the villageois. This is interesting. We can change people. We can make them see what we see. And at the same time, we can also change by becoming a little bit more open to change. Urban and rural revitalization through alleviation of the employment and social distress. You know, the problem we've had not finding personnel is actually a twofold problem. We don't find people, but at the same time, there are people that do not wish to work in an environment that they don't understand. There is a solution there. The solution needs to be found. And it needs to be with a discussion between 3 parties, not just the employees and the employers, but also the government. The government has a very crucial part in making sure this works for all parties. Optimal use of environmental resources, contribution to intercultural understandings and tolerance. People come to a country, they do want to understand how the country works. In some exceptions, you see people just want to import whoever they are to wherever they're going. Please stay home. Tourism is not about that. Tourism is about experiencing the difference, the different cultures, the different scenarios that people are willing to offer you. And when we come to your country, we need to respect what you do in your own country. This is what tourism is all about. Sustainable and long-term economic activities and benefits that are fair distributed. This is all about how we see sustainability influencing tourism in general. But to get there, we need to measure it. And we are not yet to a point where we can measure exactly what the impact of tourism is to every destination. We need to work a little bit further than we have. We go a little bit further than we have gone to make sure that we have metrics that give us a very fair understanding of how we are impacted by tourism, both financially, economically, also socially, environmentally, as this is part of what sustainability is all about. You all know the 17 goals. A very nice way of presenting is a wedding cake, where the economy, the society, and the environment are actually interlinked, but the base is the environment. The society fits into the environment, and the economy fits into the other two. It is a very, it's a visualization of how the importance runs from one. That's another nice thing I like to show my students. Unless you understand what your role is, you don't understand how you impact the change. So I like to make jokes every now and then. So going to the doctor and saying that I'm afraid you have humans it's kind of a joke, and yeah, partly the reality of what we live in today. We are more responsible in making sure that we have the future, and our generation, the future generations have the future than we understand. A few news that will change trend forever. Just a few weeks ago, we took action against 17 airlines for greenwashing. The favorite game is offsetting. Offsetting. So, this is we use fossil fuels to run our planes, and we emit CO2 forever in quantities that nobody can measure. But it does matter if we actually bought a forest somewhere in Africa, which, by the way, it was only producing oxygen. But we bought it now, so the oxygen belongs to us, and we give it to the moon. That is a bit of an unfair way of presenting sustainable policies. So we want them to tell the truth. I'm not sure how far this is going to go because we're talking about airlines, but it's interesting that the European Union has decided to tell the airlines, please don't tell things that you cannot prove one way or the other. I was going to say something nasty, but I decided to be nice. I will show you a video now. This is a very important thing. Crete is the number one destination of Greece in terms of how many people visit the island. In Crete, there is a dam called the Apostolemi Dam. The Apostolemi Dam is actually where when the snow melts in the mountains of Crete, it actually stands to two different dams. One of them is the Apostolemi Dam. This dam should have been 4 or 5 meters. Water in the dam should have been 4 or 5 meters higher than it is today. We have an image of what it looks today. There is a village that should have been built there, but it's actually built there. The dam is full of water, and the island has enough water to both for visitors and for the locals. You don't see the houses. I will show you how this looks today, which is kind of disturbing, but in a way. Give me a second. Sharing another screen. You can see that, right? You can see it or not?
We can see, we cannot hear.
Okay, it's just music. So just
No, that's fine. That's fine. I think the image tells a long story.
so this village have not been in normal situations. This is underwater. According to later studies, the water is not enough to get us through the summer in Crete. Believe it or not, this was 80% underwater. This was in winter time, we had no snow. We had very limited rain in Crete. And the village is Gereta. My biggest concern is that this is not a problem of Crete alone. We have problems like that pretty much everywhere in Greece. There are parts of Greece where we have rainfalls, and they're actually enough to sustain a fair amount of tourists and also serve the locals. This is mostly on the western part of Crete. The rest of Crete is being faced with, well, I wouldn't say drought yet, but we have a serious amount of problems to solve. And on the other hand, if you go to a place called Thessalia, which was one of the biggest, I would say, when cultivated, it can support pretty much the entire country. But it's windy, floods. And if I recall correctly, it was 3 villages that were underwater. And then we needed somehow to rethink on where we put in villages for to begin with, and how we can handle the amount of water coming fast and not being able to absorb. Well, the land is not able to absorb this type of rain. It actually goes back to the sea very fast and doesn't really create any benefits, even though the water is there. It doesn't come in a way that can be absorbed by the land. So it was the second major flood in 3 years, but we've been having floods in Thessalia since 1953. That was the first year that we ever saw that. So we need to be thinking of where we want to build, what we want to build, and how we can accommodate for nature's ways, because the nature's ways are above ours and should be respected. And again, I'm showing you the picture of Santorini because this does not make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me. I can see an island that can have 2-3 months bigger season. I don't see people just visiting in a very short period of time and creating all sorts of problems that should not be there. So what have we done? I will show you very short what we have done. We're a company of 35 years. We have had a lot of things happening in the company over the years. One of the major things that we did is trying to address issues of sustainability, not because I'm a hindrance romantic. I'm not going to pursue that angle, even though I'm a little bit sometimes, but because it makes sense. It makes sense for most of us. So we are moving strategically over the last years to the Western Peloponnese. Well, one of the reasons is because the natural resources in that area is very high, are very high. We have a lot of resources, and also, okay, I'm forgetting again the English version, what I just said before. Yes.
Say it
The
in
current
Greek, we'll
capacity.
translate, don't worry. The current
The
capacity.
current capacity. You know, I'm always getting mixed up when I'm speaking two languages. But the idea is the current capacity of the region is very high. We have one of the largest beachfronts in Greece. We have 2 airports serving the area. We have hospitals. We have now, after the Thessalia, as the serious problems of the last 3 years, we have the biggest cultivation capacity of Greece. So there are things to take into account when we decide to invest in a location without making more travel than needs to be made for the destination. So we've taken the three pillars. We've been doing this since 1999. So it's interesting because they were not even there as notions, or officially we were not talking about sustainability at the time. We were talking about social responsibility, and we did it in a few ways. One is we installed megawatt of solar power to the plant we have, to the hotel we have in Western Peloponnese. I will show you a bit of the results that are quite interesting. But it helped us have one of the biggest conference centers in Greece, accommodating more than 3,000 people. But this is an energy dependent conference hall. We do not use any sort of fuels, fossil or other. Just use the sun. This is a tool that we use to monitor how much the sun is producing to us on a daily basis. Interesting. When there is a lot of cloud, you see on the right top side that there is no production of the sun, but you cannot help it. This is why we're in the nature. We respect nature. There are considerations to install batteries so that we can store that energy, but this is for the future, not too far away from today. In numbers, I will show you how financially sound it is to make such a choice. In 2003, we pretty much paid 67,400 euro for the first trimester of the year. The amount for the first trimester of 2024 was 15,700. So we saved 52,000 euros, which is an EBITDA number. It's a number that ends up in the profit line, just by using the sun. Now, if you allow me, I'll just be a bit concerned with my own. The first thing when I saw the numbers is I called my engineer and actually asked him for an answer on something that I didn't like on those numbers. I just saved 50,000 euro and I didn't like something. You see the consumption in 2023, which is around 16,240 megawatt hours. How do you call it in English? What you saying? And in 2024, this number was 69,684. So we consumed more. Okay, it did cost us less, but we consumed more. So we spent less, but the energy that we used to run the property was more. And I really would like to know why. Because the first rule of a very sustainable operation is always consume less. How much you spend, that's another story. So that is a question I still accept. I saw this when I put it together yesterday morning, and I said, okay, I want an answer. And this is the answer that we should be looking for. But on the other hand, by using solar energy, we also produce 95% from the hot water. We use hot water and from the sun. It's going to be a different technology, but again, we do not use fossil fuels unless there is a very cloudy day. Of course, we use BME system, but we use it since 1997, which is interesting because it still holds and runs very well. We have LED lamps all over the property. We are upgrading our equipment so that we make sure that nothing falls behind it. Our heat pumps do all the work that the sun is not doing. The water that we use in the hotel, I'm talking about the non-potable water, comes from waste management procedures. You know who is the king of waste management in the Western world, let's say? It's the Germans. They are using their water 4 times over. I want to know how they do it. But as I show you, which I can show you at some point, I'm not sure if it's in this presentation, but you know who was the first one to reuse water in the world? It was the Romans with the aqueducts. One simple line of water was enough for the kitchen, for the bathroom, for the toilets, for the showering, for everything. just by monitoring the flow and arranging which one goes first and which one goes last. One very important change we did last year, 220,000 bottles of water were used by our guests. In 2023, they were zero. We used water cooler dispensers. We gave them to our guests, and they were filling up their own water through the tap water that was filtered and cooled, but no plastic anywhere around the hotel. We are gradually changing all the plants that are water consuming. We are just replicating the environment by putting plants that we find in the ecosystem where we operate. When I was in my first years, I said, this is a nice plant, let's put it there. And then after a while, I was thinking, this needs a lot of water to survive. And then I decided this water plant should not be there. It should be somewhere else, but not there. So that is a procedure that's taking a lot of time because it's a very vast area, but we are in that process as well. We are letting water flow in the showers and the sinks. We look for different solutions over and over. We already use some to purify water through waste management. Some of the things that we do is we use some organic food that comes from plants. We have some changes that I'm going to show you a slide that is very interesting. In the Cretan property, all waste management of all organic food is being led to a factory that produces energy. Through our waste management process, we gave electricity for the entire year to 18 houses. It is an interesting way of, presenting this. We gave approximately 112,000 kilos to that factory, and 18 houses used it to be electrified without any, let's say, burden or environment to the environment. It is nice to know that you don't throw or bury your waste, but you just use it for something else, something better if possible. So I will not spend much, but on the social equity thing, I'm going to show you just this. The blood donation, Aldemar, was instituted in 1997. It was the first in Greece. Believe it or not, saving lives by just giving blood was a very easy process, but most people wouldn't think about it. Another approach that we used is try to eat the local food. First of all, it's fresh. It's nicer. It doesn't necessarily include any sort of maturing into containers or anything. For example, asking for a strawberry in July in Greece doesn't make much sense because July is a very warm month and strawberries don't survive those temperatures. So you should probably, have a watermelon at that period. Try the local, try it when it's seasonal, try it when it's fresh. Make sure you don't like something just because it's nice. Croissants are French, they're not Greek. But if you want to have them, well, I might be obliged to offer them today, but I will insist until I get them off the menu. And this is probably the last thing I want to say for now. I try to cover a few issues just by showing that we can move around a very vast area of policies. But in fact, there are things to do without destroying that model that I just described above, an economic model that sustains most of the Mediterranean countries today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Alexandre. It's not easy to package all of your experience from what you both do and from what you preach and practice, as they say, because tourism is one of those industries that touch upon so many different things. So as you said, from food to water to culture to local people to everything. I very much was impressed by a phrase that you said, which I will keep and I promise I will also use in the future because I like to steal things from you, which is to renew the trust in the product. This is so important because tourism, as you said, is not a product that you build or that you create. It's a thing that actually utilizes what is offered to you in terms of either culture or nature and so on. And it reminded me of some thoughts I had on how, especially countries like Greece, because if you compare Greece to a place like Dubai, where everything is artificial, okay, you can shape things and make them look the way you want them to do because you don't have much in the sense of a natural environment or the culture and so on. But in Greece and other countries like in Spain or like many other places, you have such a wealth and richness in terms of everything you have around you that this is what your real product is. Then the rest is how you package it, how you interpret it, and all that. It made me think of some friends that we have who were asking our advice on how they can do their garden on an island. And I'll just say that because it's funny. They said, we want to do a garden, but A, there should not be any flowers that smell because they will attract bees and wasps. B, there should not be any leaves falling because, they will be getting things dirty. C, we should not have any pollen because of allergies. So I said, oh, look, what you're asking is a garden made of plastic. That's the only way you can do that. But, if you want to have a garden, you should have a garden, not a plastic thing. I'm actually thinking, and I want your comment on that where you have all this wealth, like we do have in Greece or in other places, it's very important to take the steps to interpret and to show what you have to the visitors, because this is what will fulfill them. And I'm just testing this theory or this thought with you, because I believe that what you have done in all of your facilities is to stay as close as you can to the natural environment. So, when you visit a beach or you visit the dunes behind the beach and so on, you make a very big effort to keep them alive, to keep the natural ecosystem alive. You have done a lot of work in the small streams that come around your facilities in the Peloponnese to make that a natural water cleansing process. Tell us a little bit about how you use actually the natural and cultural wealth to the benefit of the tourism that you offer to your visitors.
The reason why we are moving to a part of, the Western Peloponnese part is because my general concern about the tourism current capacity also includes the fact that we have violated not just the environment, but also the cultural richness of destinations. So I'm not sure this is entirely fair, but I'm moving to a location where things haven't been touched yet by human hand in a way that cannot be reversed. So, for example, the Western Peloponnese is very close to the ancient Olympia. Ancient Olympia is a story told through Olympic Games most of the times, but there is a story behind the story. So what we are trying to do is make sure that people, when they come there, they learn a few things about how the life was back then, because it tells us truths that we should be considering even today. For example, the Olympians had a dietary particularity, let's say, because obviously if you want to go and have very intensive sports, which at the time they were quite intensive, you should be eating carefully, you should be exercising, you should be sleeping. All those nice things you've been saying for, you actually pay doctors to tell you, but in fact, story teaches you that this was there. So what we're trying to make sure is that this impacts people. People who hear the story not from us. We are the ones telling the story. We are the ones telling them there is a story here for you to experience, to see, to visit. Or, for example, in ancient Olympia, we had one of the cleanest beaches in Greece. Why? In the region, in that region. Why is that? Everybody knows about the careta turtle. They won't give birth just to any place in the world. They will go to Zambia. They will go to all the islands of the area. But how can you tell people this is important if they don't understand what's the importance of what they're actually experiencing? So during the summer, for example, when the turtle is coming out to give birth and bury in the sun the eggs, we protect the nests, but we also bring the guests to help us do it. So we don't just do it, just make them part of that experience, because they need to understand why this is happening, what's the impact. Obviously, the time they do it, it's not the time the little ones come out So there's a different group of people that actually see that part of the process, where we close the lights and all the rules aside, and we just let them follow the line of the movie. A few things that make a difference, but at the same time, this is how protecting the ecosystem is affecting our way of behaving. I believe there is a lesson there. When we made the model, the logos of whatever we are trying to do as a hotel company, we said celebrate life. The reason is very simple. About 5 or 7 years ago, I said that there is a different version of luxury that I'm offering. And then I just decided I hate that version of the truth. Because a new luxury is to be able to celebrate life as it is offered to you, as you want to make it so that it looks good to the people looking at you. You don't need it for me. The speed limit is 120. Just buy a fucking nice car. Sorry for the English. This is what makes sense. Don't try to impress others. Try to impress the ones that are close to you, the ones that are affected by you, because this is the people that will be part of the change that you come to believe in.
Exactly. And this is what I was asking about the interpretation. You know, it's very important. And especially, I mean, people that have some sensitivity or families can see the importance for that. But that leads me to another point, which is you mentioned the social part and the inclusion. And there are a number of aspects on inclusion. One is how you include the local people in what you do, which I know you try very much to include as much as possible in your workforce. The second is that you try to be inclusive so that you do not have any segregation or any exceptions, and everyone who can be in your workforce, they will be, irrespective of whether they have mobility problems or whatever. And then there's a third dimension, which is the inclusiveness of the visitors. I'm saying that because I will just mention two examples that I know. One of them is the program that one of the people that are actually attending, Debbie, Richardson in Oman, has created an amazing program for sailing for people with movement disabilities. And the impact that this program had is unbelievable. The other is, I remember many, many years back when I was visiting one protected coastal area, it was full of dunes and so on. And the people that were managing it thought that, you know, this should be visited not only by those who can walk around on the dunes, but also people that might have to use a wheelchair or something like this. And they had created a very simple solution. They took a piece of like metal mesh, like metal grid, kotetsoshirma, we call it in Greek, and just put it on the dunes. That allowed the wheelchairs to just move safely in there. And the people that could visit and understand the value of this ecosystem, I mean, it was one of the rare examples. And I know that you're doing the same. I mean, you're providing equal opportunities in all of the dimensions that I said. But please tell us a little bit about your policy and your sensitivity to this.
Because we also have Marios Hadjidiamnianos, one of our stakeholders at Verimpact, who's asking about diversity, inclusion, and equality, how you actually integrate that into your sustainability model.
Thank you, Christina.
So since you covered most of it, what we were actually in the process of, well, it is a very interesting, let's say, approach on how to help people with movement problems get into the water, the seawater, because as you very well know, since Hippocrates, seawater is a cure rather than anything else. So we're trying to make sure we are allowing people to get into the water through that technology, and it's going to be it's going to be operational probably before the end of the season. So this is something really nice for people with some sort of disabilities. But I would like to stress a little bit more on the workforce. There are three things to consider for the future. First of all, Europe is aging, and so is Greece. So both in terms of travelers and in terms of employees, you should be addressing that reality. You need to help people be when they visit an actual destination, regardless of their age and their ability to move freely or with the same agility as they used to in the past. You need to be offering them the possibility to do as much as they want. Okay, you have kids with skateboards. You have a person that has reached his 70s and he does not move as freely as he used to move. So you need to be able to accommodate for both. But at the same time, you also need in the workforce people that should be working in their 60s without any big problem. And hotel industry and then generally the hospitality industry offers positions for people that are not limited by age or mobility or other sort of disabilities. So we make sure that in every position, when we consider applicants, we do not look in a limited way the possibilities of what someone has to offer. In Peloponnesos, one of the most liked, actually, he's a player employee of the year is Foodis. Foodis was to be to take his pension this year. So I went to him and said, Foodis, you are too young to go on the pension. Now, what was the thinking behind it? First of all, everybody loves you. He will always help somebody either older or with more, some challenges, walking challenges. Always help them around. He's kind to children. He's kind to the elderly. He's good at what he does. He's the maître d'hôtel, and he's a person that people would like to go and actually have gone to eat at his mother, who is very close to 90 now. Believe it or not, these are people that you can rely even more than you would ever expect to rely on someone, just because they understand the value of being a person, of being human. We have actually more women than men, so nobody can judge me of being. If they can tell me I've been discriminated or not. So there is no effective discrimination. This is not something that we are very concerned, especially now the world is becoming more free. This is not something we should be putting in the discrimination sphere. But in terms of disability and in terms of age, there is still quite a bit of discrimination, and this is where we are giving all our efforts.
We're almost out of time, but I have one final point because Marina put up on the chat the link on which you can see the previous webinars that we have done. And I want to refer to the just previous one, the seminar that we had by Arab Hobala, who spoke about circularity and sustainable consumption and production. And because I like to connect things that we are trying to explain and help people understand and make part of their lives. In the recent chat that you and I had, Alexandra, you mentioned two examples. One is how you reduced food waste very significantly in your facilities. And the other is the example of how you managed to cut out the use of plastic bottles by doing a couple of very, very clever steps. Can you share with us in just 3 minutes what you did for food waste and how many plastic bottles you managed to reduce by the tricks you did, which you will explain in 3 minutes?
Very fast, starting from the water. I was annoyed when I saw 220,000 half-liter bottles moving around the hotel, which of course it's a waste massacre. You don't want to get into that. But at the same time, it was very interesting when I decided to put water fillers around the hotel, making sure that everybody's drinking good quality water, but they can use those dispensers that we offer them. It is interesting that with the very few exceptions, most people were expecting that. That was very fascinating to see. I didn't expect it. I can really tell you who was the one that was more disrupted by this, but I'm sure you know that. So I'm going to avoid that. But interesting enough, Scandinavians first, the British afterwards, then there was the Germans. Everybody seemed to understand this. This is a policy that works for most people. Fresh, cool water at any time, not in a plastic bottle. Now,
and that's
the waste
200,000 plastic bottles, right? 200,000, 220,000.
220,000 plastic bottles.
Okay.
So the waste in Crete, we are giving around organic waste to a factory that actually produces energy and the manure, which is organic, which is flat. And I showed you a bit, they gave us the stat, that was very nice. They actually showed us that we gave electricity to 18 houses in the Iraqian city, which was nice to see. It was the result of our, not throwing away everything. In Peloponnesus, they are not as prepared for that, but we did a very simple thing. Most of the people working in the hotels, they own chicken or pigs. So when we donate, it's food for them. So instead of waiting for the local factory to start handling the problem, which was a very stressful period for me, I don't see how they think sometimes. But in the meantime, I created we call it it's a fridge, let's say, for waste. We just put it outside into bags, and when they're leaving, everybody's taking it back for food for their chicken and pigs.
Amazing.
So instead of burying that, everybody gets a bit of a benefit for their own household, whatever they use it
Fantastic.
for. And we also have the problem with the waste.
Yeah, nature-based solution, this is called. Nature provides you the chicken and the pigs, and they do the best recycling you could ever have. We don't have time for more questions. You know that me and
No,
I could go on
unfortunately.
for the entire day, but I leave it up now to Christina and Marina. I just want to thank you very much. I never get enough of our discussions about sustainability and tourism, and also the occasional jokes that we exchange, but that's another story. So Marina, Christina, Alexander, thank you so much on my part.
Christina, do you want to say something?
Thank you, Alexandra. Thank you to all the participants that come from the four corners of Earth. We have in the chat our LinkedIn address, the previous YouTube recordings of the webinars with Mr. Arab Khubala and Victoria Kalfaki. Marina?
No, I would like to thank everyone participating today. Thank you, Mr. Angelopoulos, for coming and joining us at this Verimpact Academy Alumni Club series of webinars. We will hopefully see you next month with another webinar. Information will come shortly in a few days, maybe. So thank you all for joining us today.